CKGSB, China's only not-for-profit independent business school.
If I look at the next 5 years, 10 years, I see China's economy growing at somewhere between 6 to 7%. If you assume an 8%, 9%, 10% growth, but the reality is 6 to 7, you're going to be in deep trouble. As the economy becomes more mature, the days of easy money are gone. Now you have to fight for your money. I've talked to some of the big multinationals, and simplifying a little bit, senior executives, what they say is that, okay, last 10 years, last 20 years, on the sales side, basically you could have quote-unquote order takers, and life would be fine. Now that doesn't work. What you need actually people who know how to market, who can talk value proposition, who can talk about why my product or my service is better than my competition's, and kind of, give some reason for the customer to believe what you're saying. So essentially, a shift from sales to marketing. Of course, along with that, in the consumer goods sector, significant need for investment in branding, because not just that the brutality of competition becomes greater and the market growth slows down, but a lot of Chinese consumers, they are no longer naive customers, inexperienced customers, that they have more experience, and they're a bit more affluent. So therefore, the importance of branding goes up, the importance of differentiation goes up, and so on. In the technology sector, there are some challenges, for the IBMs and the Microsofts and the Oracles, etc. And we have been seeing in the, reading in the papers recently that because Chinese government wants to build Chinese champions. Historically, that has happened. For instance, Google is not here, but Baidu is here. But it used to be sort of confined narrowly, largely to the internet domain. But now we see kind of that approach spreading more widely in the technology sector. So I think in the technology sector, companies face challenges, and it's not clear yet how the policy will evolve. On the other hand, in certain areas, for example, on pricing issues, vis-a-vis Mercedes and Audi and BMW and Jaguar, Land Rover and so on, etc., there, I think clearly there is much greater scrutiny and pressure on the pricing front, for sure. But I don't think that the screws are being turned in terms of, let's say, that we don't want you, okay, or that we may not want you. If anything, the signals that I read in the automotive sector, it's even possible, I wouldn't rule it out, that the government changes the policy in terms of 50-50 JV versus a wholly foreign owned, a WOFE. And it's possible that one day we wake up and the policy has changed and that foreign car companies can now set up 100% on WOFEs. So I think there are sectoral differences. There are certain sectors, typically consumer goods. So if you're a Unilever, a P&G, a Coca-Cola, a Nike, the market has been pretty open. It's basically the government doesn't have much of an industrial policy. It's like, may the best company win. That's been true in the past. That's true today. And I anticipate that that will continue. If you've been working for an Apple, a Qualcomm, an IBM, and an Intel, for the last 15 years, that's how you get to be mid to senior level. That you basically have come to your mindset, your cultural DNA as a professional has changed. And you like the kind of culture that the multinational has. Yes, you may be wondering if I should switch to a state-owned enterprise, but I haven't come across a single person who says, I would be happy in a state-owned enterprise. It would not be that easy for these state-owned enterprises to attract them. If you're looking at young people fresh out of college, there I could imagine that they may gravitate more towards the state-owned enterprises than multinationals. But at that level, you don't have the scarcity, so the multinationals don't face the scarcity. So therefore, some will go to the state-owned enterprises, but the MNCs still can have their pick. So I don't see talent, retention, HR as an issue for the multinationals. Now in future, could it become an issue? Maybe, but that would also depend on how rapidly these state-owned enterprises undergo reform. And I wouldn't bet that they undergo reform at a rapid pace. There are certain sectors where Chinese companies dominate and have dominated, and that's because as a part of national policy, basically foreign companies are not welcome. That's the steel and cement and telecom and airlines and, wind power and solar panels and the like. So I think there the Chinese companies dominate and are likely to continue to dominate. In a lot of FMCG products, the market tends to permit many players to compete and permits new players to come up and over time dislodge existing players or catch up with them. And I think in foods, I expect Chinese competitors to become bigger and stronger over time. Some of that just to kind of sheer efforts within China to become better and stronger, and some of it because the Chinese company makes some smart acquisitions abroad so that it acquires some brand, some technology, and then brings that to China. So I think in those sectors I see Chinese competition becoming stronger. In consumer electronics, in addition to your Samsung and LG and Apple and so on, or Sony, that we will see Chinese players battling it out. And that would include Lenovo and Xiaomi for sure, but also Huawei and ZTE are moving into handsets and so on, so there may be other players in consumer electronics. So I think consumer electronics, we will see both the multinationals as well as Chinese players kind of in the marketplace fighting it out, and that battle may go on, for an extended period of time with not necessarily a clear winner.